So why do we have men up here? I remember when we first shared that we were gonna do like a women's conference and men were included. They were all like, "Why? That's a thing for the women." But it's not a thing just for the women. We need the support of men as fathers and husbands and brothers and friends to help bring us alongside them and advocate for us and encourage us and see the things in us that we can't see for ourselves and call that forward. And it is absolutely critical that we have them in our corner to really help propel us forward. So their voices are also really important, and I think they all have unique perspectives into us too, who we were made to be, and can see those things sometimes more clearly than we can. So we're gonna get to hear from each of them, but first I'd like to let you give maybe just a few minutes into kind of how you view women and the queenly journey that the Lord's been speaking to you about over the last couple of years, and really how that affects how you champion and look at women.
Okay. Well, anybody who's heard me talk in the last few years has heard me talk about Luke 19. Collective groan. And Luke 19 is about when Jesus gave the parable. Between his first and second coming, he said, rich man went away to receive a kingdom and then return. And he's talking about himself, and he entrusted his stuff to his servants. And then after a long time, he returned back and gave the account. He said, "Do business until I come." When he came back, he gave account. He had them give an account. And if you remember, what did the successful people, what did they get as a reward? Luke 19. He said, "You who was faithful with 10 minas receive 10 cities." And so it's rulership, it's co-rulership. And in fact, the whole point of Luke 19 and the whole point of this period we find ourselves in this age between his first and second coming. Why didn't he collapse it into one? Be a lot more efficient. He just came one time. What's the point of this age? Why are we here? And it's to develop us for co-ruling with him when he is actually he's on the throne today, but when he is enthroned on earth to co-rule. So what if that's real? What if it's real? If we're really learning to co-rule, well, then all of our challenges, including motherhood, including entrepreneurialism, including physical challenges, everything is all for us to grow and overcome and put on a kingly, queenly journey. And so we are literally in training. And I was thinking about the Galatians 3, where it says, "In Christ there is neither Jew nor Greek, free nor slave, and man nor woman, female nor female." So to God, there is literally no difference. And there's not no difference. There's many differences. The Jews and Greeks are different. Men and women are different. The races are different. And we should enjoy those differences and celebrate those differences, but there's no difference in value. There's no difference in inheritance. You follow me? So I think the idea is we don't want to broad brush and make, in God's view, he didn't make everyone the same. Thank God. Every snowflake is different. He can't but create. And so every human is different, every race is different, every creed is different, every gender is different. So he loves that, but it's no difference in inheritance. Literally, man or woman, there is no difference in your calling before him in eternity, not a single thing. And so when he says you're going to inherit, cities with him and leadership, he's preparing you to lead, and that is male and female alike. And so I remember when Deborah came to me years ago, and I can't remember the context, but she was feeling some concern about being single and like, is this okay? And it seems like there was not that relational element was not happening in her life. And I remember asking the Lord, and the Lord spoke out loud to me as much as he ever has, and he said to me, "Do not touch. Do not touch. She's on the queenly journey. Do not touch. Don't manipulate. Don't get in there and create a false introduction or a push towards X or Y or Z. Do not touch what I am doing in her. Do not touch it." He said she's on the queenly journey, and so the Lord is making. There was a unique grind and a unique pressure that was on her heart at that time that the Lord was in. This forging, the forming, right? It's the pressure that creates greatness, always. Resistance always creates strength. It's the only way to strength is resistance. And so she was on this journey. You know, the last comment I'll say is I'm a student of history. I just cannot stop reading history, and because I'm looking for the fingerprints of God throughout history, and I've studied basically cultural transformations and historical transformations since the beginning of history, which is about 6,000 years that we have of history. And it's so interesting because history has been 100% male-dominated until about the last 100 years. 100% male-dominated, male values. You can wonder why, but men are generally stronger and more aggressive because of testosterone, you know? And so women, so men, and men have since created warlike cultures. If you think every culture, every successful culture in history that, you know, from the first 6,000 years of human history was a warlike culture. They all made war. You know, I think about the Vikings in the Viking Age. The definition of a Viking entrepreneur was a raider, a pirate. That's the only way to get ahead. You know, so hey, let's go start our own little raiding business, and they'd go, you know, pillage and you know, rape and steal, and that was success. And then they created a religion around raping and stealing and booty, and it created more of this culture, and women were utterly silenced. Same with the Roman culture, same with the Mongolian culture that ruled half the world. I mean, it's been continuum in all of history that women have been silenced until about 100 years ago when women got the vote in America, and it changed everything. So women's voices, women have a different value system, right? Women have generally more compassion. They're kinder. They don't like war as much as men like war, you know? They don't like conflict and fighting. And I'm making some generalizations that you may not agree with, but you know, allow me for a moment. And so what happened as soon as women got the vote, you know, the World War I was actually started by basically personal conflicts between royal families. And so war was their simply way to exercise their personal desires to punish their brother or cousin. And so that's historically the way wars were done. It was like, hey, let's go, I want some more booty, I want some more riches, I'm mad at that guy, let's go have a war. But since World War I, it's not happened anymore once women got the vote. Women voting and women stepping their voices has changed the entire planet. And so much of, I view, the social justice movement is women's voices coming forth. The idea of going after human trafficking and all these things, and even so much of the let's say the, you know, very toxic kind of political things that I would see coming forth. There's an element that's right and godly about it, of justice, that is actually, God is the author of these things. And it's women's voices that are coming forth. And I believe in this hour that God is raising up women to change society and bringing that part of God's value system that is embodied in women. He is kind. He is compassionate. He is empathetic. He is gracious. He's emotional. And these things that are good, these are parts of who God is too. And they're bringing those forth, caring and kindness, into culture. And we are seeing a much kinder culture. And that includes society, includes businesses, includes every area. And so I believe we're in the beginning of a movement here. I certainly am. You know, I have 8 granddaughters coming forth and no grandsons. So, I'm raising up, you know, helping to champion 8 little world changers whose voice is going to make a massive difference on the planet. And so we're seeing the end of simply power and strength being the main drivers of society. And so women's voices are coming forth, and it's God doing it. It is God doing it. And yes, there was a false start with, you know, who was it that shared about old school feminism, you know, and so there's some false starts, there's some Ishmaels, but it doesn't change a thing. It's still coming forth. Women's voices are coming forth. Women in government, women in business, leading a whole different way of doing business that's more compassionate, it's more holistic, It's more conducive to 50% of the population, as someone shared. So we're on the beginning of a movement, and I see the fingerprints of God all over it, and that's why we're here.
Woo woo! Thanks for sharing. All right, men, you ready? I feel like we should have a theme song. All right, I'm gonna start with Sam. How do you see the importance of women's voices?
Like in my personal life,
Yeah, you
with
can talk
my wife.
maybe Deborah. Yeah, how are you intentionally championing her voice?
I mean,
Your sister.
yeah. At a technical level, I would say that Deborah is like the one. It's basically my brain. Like I forget everything. She is like a cloud of wisdom, and I'll tell you this. I got married out of like 200% admiration. I knew that like I was not going to be able to find anybody better than Deborah. And so that admiration to me, like for the last, I guess, 3 years of marriage, has been like what drives me to always want her voice, because I know of just the wealth of wisdom that she carries. And like for my personal life, like I just knew that there were so many things that I needed to get better at, and I wanted to grow in, and that I saw all these things in her. And so constantly I just needed her voice. Like I need to know what she thinks about everything. And I guess because of that admiration, for me, it's like very easy to just kind of yield to like, you know, what do you think about this stuff? And we discuss things. Obviously, she also respects my opinions and what I want to, you know, put on the table. But to me, it's just like there are things that I just don't see. And I feel like in general, there are things I just we were created so differently that we need both. It's like it's a compliment for sure. That's how it's worked out for me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. She's pretty great, huh?
Yeah.
I like
I
her
love
too.
you, honey.
We'll just go down the line.
So same
hold on
question?
one moment. Nope.
I want to ask you a different question, John. So you've been here the whole session, the whole couple of days here. So I'm just curious, is there anything that's been turning in your heart or your head about women when thinking about raising Shiloh and daughter number 2 coming? Like, how are you as a father thinking about raising up 2 little women and then having a kick-butt wife thrown in the mix there? What does that look like?
I'm glad you asked that question. So the Lord prepared me for this question that you just asked. I ran an errand earlier this afternoon, and he started speaking to me about an empowering moment that Amber actually really touched me. It was about a week ago, I think. So before I tell you what the moment was, what she did was she empowered me as a father and as a man in a way that I can't be empowered by anybody else. And it was so life-changing, not just for me as a father, but for Shiloh. And it was very simple. Shiloh started crying when Mom entered the room when I was trying to feed her, and I was going to put her down to sleep. And she said, "No, that's not okay." So she took Shiloh from me, and I just felt defeated in a moment. I thought, gosh, I guess I don't have this down yet. And she said, "No, that's not okay that you treat Daddy like that. I'm going to give you to Daddy." And she left the room. So that...
I didn't exactly say it that way.
Something like that. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But what it did for me is it empowered me to be a father in that moment, but it also transforms the way she is raised in her future. You know how kids will choose to go to the daddy or the mommy, depending on who's weak or who's strong. If they want to go to a kid's friend's house to spend the night, if the dad's is the strong one, she'll go to Mom after that and say, "Well, let's see what Mom says." We're removing that reality by giving both of us equal authority while she's an infant. Yeah, so that's how I would answer that question.
And how do you want Shiloh to view her options in the world and who she is and her identity and all that.
So championing her as a woman, being a man, is it also filters through my past. Having a mom who wasn't present, or when she was, it was anger and just physical abuse, verbal abuse. Obviously, I've learned the ways to not nurture a young lady. But I honestly feel, just through what I'm learning in this entire conference, is that I want to empower our daughters from infancy to live to be strong women who choose to do what they have been designed to do. Whatever their blueprints are, I want to champion that.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Emmanuel. So, the question for you is, how have you intentionally supported your wife? So she is strong and courageous and amazing and she's very just well-faceted. So how have you encouraged her and intentionally supported that?
When we were designing this panel, she said, "You need to get Manny up there because he's the best husband ever."
and I have blessed with a wife who would agree with that. Yeah, so I got two amazing women when I married my wife because she had an 8-year-old daughter at the time. So yes, I've got two amazing females in my life, and that's been incredible. But to answer the question, so the question is, how have I supported her? Which it's a good question because I think to me it's the mindset I adopted when I said yes. When I said I do, it was like I have made a covenant to put myself into this, and it's not like there's it's like a all in kind of thing. Like I jumped in head first, and it was like, so I'm so invested in her. And so I think that starting with that, just like that heart and that mind investment, and having the grace to do that and commit to her in that way, like just makes it come easier. So when I see an opportunity to support her, of course, I'm not perfect at it, but Elizabeth would praise me and say the same thing of like, wow, you're just, and lately she's been just like saying to me, wow, how are you such a good husband? I'm like, I don't know, because like I said I would be, like, so I'm trying to do that. Like, I'm trying to live up to my word on that. And so that's, so I think that's how, I think I just adopted that mindset of like, no, I'm fully in this. Like when I said I love you, that means like, I don't care if I feel like I love you today. It means that like, that's my duty and my responsibility is to make you be first. And it doesn't, and even in the little ways, even in little ways, it's like, we can take like the verse about husbands love your wives as Christ loves the church is like, whoa, like that's this intense high calling of like, look how Christ laid his life down for the church. But in little ways every day I can do a little bit of that. Like, honey, what do you need? How can I help you? And we have a very cool, unique opportunity together because we work and do business together fully as business partners. And so there's a lot of opportunity for me. It's like, babe, what can I take? I see her and she's amazing. And she's running around, and so it's really cool because I get to see in a very practical way, her wins are my wins. You know, when she wins in life, I win. You know, when she is praised and honored, and like, I feel like when I got married, and I got married at 34, and it was kind of like this breath of fresh air in our lives where we get to come together and really make each other better. Like we kind of had figured out life on our own, you know, into our 30s, and now I'm coming into this thing of like, this lady makes me want to be better. I make her be better, and it's a really blessed thing. And so when I see those opportunities to bless her, it's going. I can actually see how this is gonna like. How do I say it? It's like when I see her on display and praised or whatever, I feel proud. I'm like, this is my wife. And like, I feel so invested in who she is that when she succeeds at something, when she does good at something, when she has a win,
it's a victory for me. And so that's really a blessing. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Bob, Dad, last question.
Are you going to say something nice about me like Claire said to her
I
mother?
actually
Make
was
everybody
going
laugh?
to, but now that you brought it up. No, I was going to. I have had a front row seat to watching you champion every member of our family our entire lives. And I always felt like I could do anything that I ever wanted because I knew you were in my corner. And so I feel like where I'm at today is as a result of having that impact and influence. And I've seen you do that for Mom at different stages in her life, wherever she is. There she is. And really just calling out the best in her and giving her that strength of knowing that someone's like cheering her on. So, and I'd love just to hear a quick perspective from you all of that give and take in marriage too, and seasonality, and how you champion each other, and kind of what the Lord puts in you to do that with, and like kind of the ups and downs of different times.
You know, I love what Sam said about admiration. You know, I mean, you know, you look at your kids and your wife, you see so much to admire, and you focus on that. And if there's anything I've done right, it's probably reminding them who they are. And I'm an animal about doing that. How many times have I told you who you were? 1,000,001. How many times have I told you who you were? And the Bible says encourage one another daily, and especially women seem to have a gift of self-neutralization, you know, and self-nukization, you know, and women are experts at self-dismissal, self-negation, self-neutralization, and so it's super important, if there's anything, is to tell them who they are all the time, and remind them who they are, and pretty soon they'll believe it, you know. So that's, I mean, if there's anything, that's it.
That's great. Thank you all so much. Love your input and having you come up and share.